Hey, welcome back to MindFuel Zone. I am Arqam, and I am really glad you are here today. Before we start, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like the world was against you? Like no matter what you did, things just did not get better? Most of us have felt that way at some point. But today's story is about a man who felt that every single day. His whole life was a battle. People told him to be quiet. They locked him away. They tried to break him. But he never broke. He stood tall. He stayed calm. And in the end, he won. Today at MindFuel Zone, we are going to talk about Nelson Mandela. This is not just a history lesson. This is a story about strength, patience, and hope. And as you listen, your English is getting better too. So sit back, relax, and let this story take you somewhere powerful. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918. He was born in a small village. The village was called Mvezo. Mvezo is in South Africa. South Africa is a country at the bottom of Africa. Nelson's father was a chief. A chief is a leader of a village. His father's name was Gadla Henry Mfakanyiswa. That is a long name, right? People called him Gadla for short. Gadla was a respected man in the village. He made decisions for the people. He solved problems. He led his community. Nelson watched his father lead. He learned what leadership looked like. He learned that a leader serves people. A leader does not just take power. A leader uses power to help others. This idea stayed with Nelson his whole life. Nelson had a big family. His father had 4 wives. Nelson had many brothers and sisters. Life in the village was simple. They did not have electricity. They did not have running water. But they had community. They had culture. They had stories. Every evening, the elders told stories. Stories about heroes. Stories about battles. Stories about wisdom. Nelson loved these stories. He listened carefully every time. He dreamed about being a hero one day. He dreamed about doing something great. When Nelson was about 9 years old, something changed. His father became sick. His father died. Nelson was very sad. He lost his father at a young age, but a man from the village stepped in to help. His name was Yongintaba Dalindyebo. He was also a chief. He was more powerful than Nelson's father. Jongintaba decided to take care of Nelson. He brought Nelson to his home. His home was much bigger. It had nice furniture. It had nice clothes. Nelson had never seen anything like it. It was like entering a new world. Yongintaba treated Nelson like his own son. He made sure Nelson went to school. Education was very important in Jongintaba's home. Nelson started school at a young age. His teacher gave him an English name. The name was Nelson. In those days, teachers often gave students English names, so the boy became Nelson. Nelson loved school. He was a curious student. He asked many questions. He wanted to understand everything. He studied hard every day. He was not the best student in the class, but he worked harder than most. He never gave up on a subject. Even when something was difficult, he kept trying. Nelson grew up and went to college. He studied at a place called Fort Hare University. Fort Hare was a famous school in South Africa. Only smart, young black students could go there. Nelson felt proud to be there. He made friends. He learned about law. He learned about politics. Politics means how a country is run. Who makes the rules? Who has power? Who does not have power? Nelson started to notice something important. In South Africa, black people did not have equal rights. A system called Apartheid controlled everything. Apartheid is an Afrikaans word. It means separateness. Under apartheid, Black people and white people were kept apart. Black people could not use the same buses. They could not go to the same schools. They could not live in the same areas. They could not vote. They had almost no rights. This was deeply unfair. Nelson felt angry about this. He felt that something needed to change. He started to speak up at college. He joined a student protest. A protest is when people stand together to say something is wrong. The college did not like this. They told Nelson to stop. He refused. So they removed him from college. Nelson lost his place at the university, but he did not stop fighting for what was right. Nelson moved to the big city. The city was called Johannesburg. Johannesburg was the largest city in South Africa. It was busy. It was loud. It was full of energy. Nelson had very little money when he arrived. He worked small jobs. He tried to save money. He wanted to finish his education. He studied law on his own. He read books in his spare time. He did not let his situation stop him. In Johannesburg, Nelson met a man named Walter Sisulu. Walter was a kind man. He believed in Nelson. He helped Nelson find a job at a law firm. A law firm is a place where lawyers work. Nelson worked hard at the law firm. He learned from experienced lawyers. He passed his exams. He became a lawyer. This was a big achievement. Very few black men were lawyers in South Africa at that time. Nelson and his friend Oliver Tambo opened their own law office. It was the first black law firm in South Africa. People came to them for help. Black people who were treated unfairly came to Nelson. He fought for them in court. He spoke clearly and powerfully. He helped many people. But Nelson realized something. Helping one person at a time was not enough. The whole system was broken. The whole system needed to change. He decided to fight not just in court. He decided to fight in politics. He joined a group called the African National Congress. People called it the ANC. The ANC was a group that wanted equal rights for black South Africans. Nelson became very active in the ANC. He organized people. He gave speeches. He planned protests. The government did not like this. They watched Nelson closely. They saw him as a threat. A threat means something that could cause danger to those in power. The government tried to stop Nelson many times. They banned him. Banning means the government says you cannot speak in public. You cannot attend meetings. You cannot leave your home area. Nelson was banned multiple times, but he kept working quietly. He kept finding ways to fight. Around this time, Nelson fell in love. Her name was Evelyn Mace. They got married. They had children together. But Nelson was always busy. He was always in meetings. He was always traveling. He was always fighting for the movement. His family did not see him much. Eventually, Nelson and Evelyn separated. It was a painful time in his life. A few years later, Nelson met someone new. Her name was Winnie Madikizela. Winnie was young and beautiful. She was also very strong and brave. Nelson fell in love with her quickly. They got married in 1958. Winnie stood by Nelson through everything, even when life got very hard. And it was about to get very hard. In 1960, something terrible happened. The police killed 69 peaceful protesters. The protesters were not armed. They were not violent. They were just standing together. But the police fired at them. This event is called the Sharpeville Massacre. A massacre is when many people are killed at once. The whole world was shocked. Nelson was shocked and heartbroken. He decided the peaceful approach was not working. He helped start a new group. This group used sabotage as a tool. Sabotage means damaging buildings or equipment, not hurting people, just destroying symbols of the unfair system. The government was furious. They called Nelson a terrorist. A terrorist is someone who uses fear and violence to control others. Nelson did not agree with this label. He believed he was fighting for justice. But the government wanted him in prison. Nelson had to hide. He disguised himself. He wore different clothes. He changed how he looked. He moved from place to place. The police searched for him everywhere. For a while, he escaped. But in 1962, he was caught. The police arrested Nelson. He was put in court. The judge found him guilty. Nelson was sent to prison. But then things got even worse. While Nelson was in prison, the police found more evidence against him. There was a second trial. This time, Nelson and his friends faced the death sentence. The death sentence means the government can kill you as punishment. Nelson stood in court. He knew he might die, but he was not afraid. He spoke calmly in court. He said he believed in democracy. He said he believed in equal rights for all people. He said he was prepared to die for these beliefs. The judge did not give the death sentence. Instead, Nelson was sent to prison for life. Life in prison means you stay in prison forever. Nelson was 46 years old. They sent Nelson to a prison on an island. The island was called Robben Island. Robben Island is in the ocean, far from the shore. You could not escape from it. The prison there was very harsh. Nelson had a tiny cell. A cell is a small room in prison. His cell was about the size of a small bathroom. He slept on the floor. He had one thin blanket. In winter, it was very cold. The guards were not kind. They gave Nelson and other prisoners hard work. They made them break rocks in a quarry. A quarry is a place where workers dig stone from the ground. The sun was strong. The dust was everywhere. Nelson's eyes were damaged from years of working in that dust. But Nelson did not lose hope. He found ways to stay strong. He exercised every morning. He did push-ups and sit-ups in his tiny cell. He read books whenever he could. He studied more law. He even got a law degree while in prison. He talked with other prisoners. He encouraged them. He told them not to give up. Even in the worst place, Nelson was a leader. Years passed, 10 years, 20 years, 27 years in total. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison. That is almost 3 decades. During that time, the world outside was changing. People around the world heard about Nelson Mandela. They heard about the unfair system in South Africa. Governments put pressure on South Africa. Companies stopped doing business there. Sports teams refused to play against South Africa. The whole world was saying, "This is wrong." Inside South Africa, people kept fighting too. Winnie Mandela fought very hard outside the prison walls. She kept Nelson's name alive. She reminded people why they were fighting. She suffered greatly too. The government arrested her. They banned her. They made her life very difficult. But she did not stop. In the late 1980s, the South African government was under huge pressure. The president at that time was F.W. de Klerk. De Klerk was a white leader, but he was also a smart man. He knew the system could not continue. He knew apartheid had to end. He met with Nelson secretly in prison. They talked for a long time. They agreed that change was necessary. On February 11th, 1990, something happened that people had dreamed about for years. The prison gates opened. Nelson Mandela walked out. He was 71 years old. He had white hair now. His face showed many years of struggle, but his eyes were bright. He raised his fist in the air. Thousands of people were waiting for him. They cheered. They cried. They danced. The whole world watched on television. People in other countries also cheered and cried. It was one of the most powerful moments in modern history. Nelson smiled. He was finally free. But Nelson did not rest. He immediately got back to work. He talked with de Klerk. He negotiated. Negotiating means talking and finding a middle ground. Finding a solution that works for everyone. It was not easy. Some people on both sides did not want peace. Some wanted more violence. Nelson and de Klerk worked hard to avoid that. They wanted a peaceful solution. Together, they helped South Africa move toward a new system. A system where everyone could vote. Black, white, everyone. In 1993, Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. The Nobel Peace Prize is one of the highest honors in the world. It is given to people who work for peace. Nelson accepted the prize humbly. He said it belonged to everyone who had fought for freedom. Then came the moment that changed everything. April 27th, 1994, South Africa held its first free election, an election where everyone could vote. For the first time in the history of South Africa, Black people could choose their leader. Millions of people stood in long lines. Some stood for hours. Some old women had never voted in their entire lives. They cried as they put their vote in the box. It was a beautiful and emotional day, and the result was clear. Nelson Mandela won. He became the first Black president of South Africa. The crowd went wild. Music played. Flags waved. People hugged strangers. On May 10, 1994, Nelson Mandela was sworn in as president. He stood there in a suit, tall, calm, and proud. He gave a speech about unity, about healing, about building a new South Africa together. He said the time for suffering was over. The time for healing had begun. As president, Nelson did something surprising. He did not punish white South Africans. Many people expected anger and revenge. But Nelson chose forgiveness. He said the country could not move forward with hate. He created something called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Reconciliation means making peace after conflict. People who had done wrong things during apartheid could speak the truth. They could admit what they did, and they could be forgiven. This was a very brave idea. Many people did not agree with it at first, but over time, people saw it was working. The country started to heal slowly. Nelson served as president for 5 years. He did not try to stay in power forever. In 1999, he stepped down. He let someone else lead. He believed in democracy. He believed no one should hold power too long. After his presidency, Nelson Mandela still worked. He fought against poverty. He fought against the disease called HIV and AIDS. He raised awareness. He raised money. He built schools and clinics. He traveled the world. He spoke to leaders. He spoke to children. He never stopped caring. He lived a long life. On December 5th, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away. He was 95 years old. The world stopped when it heard the news. Leaders from almost every country came to his funeral. Ordinary people stood outside and sang songs. They held candles. They remembered the man who had given so much. South Africa had lost its father. The world had lost a giant. Nelson Mandela's life teaches us so many things. He was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He had a difficult personal life at times. But what made him special was his heart. He truly cared about other people. He believed that no one deserved to suffer because of the color of their skin. He believed that every human being had value. He believed that dignity was not something you earned. It was something every person was born with. He spent 27 years in prison, and when he came out, he had no bitterness. That is almost impossible to understand, but he said it himself. He said that hating others would have kept him a prisoner in his heart, and he chose freedom. Freedom in his mind. Freedom in his soul. That kind of strength is rare. That kind of wisdom is beautiful. And for us as English learners, this story means something extra. Nelson Mandela himself spoke many languages. He knew that language was power. He said, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart." Think about that. Every English word you learn today is a door opening. Every story you listen to makes your mind stronger. You are on your own journey. Maybe it is not as dramatic as Mandela's journey, but it is still your fight to grow, to improve, to reach your goals. And just like Mandela, you do not need perfect conditions to keep going. You just need to keep going. Thank you so much for listening today, my friend. This is Arqam from MindFuel Zone. I hope Mandela's story gave you something to think about. I hope it gave you a little more energy to keep learning. If this story helped you, please do one small thing. Hit the subscribe button. It only takes a second, but it helps MindFuel Zone reach more learners like you. You can also leave a comment. Tell me what surprised you the most about Mandela's life, or tell me which part of his story touched your heart. I read every single comment, I really do. And if you know someone who is learning English, share this video with them. Together we can all grow. Remember, every great journey starts with one small step. Mandela took his. Now keep taking yours. This is Arqam signing off from MindFuel Zone. Take care, stay curious, and I will see you in the next story.